there are a few comedians that stand, tall among all the comedians that you can ever think of. And one of such individual is none other than Eddie Murphy himself. Is none other than Eddie Murphy himself, and he has gone on to make hits upon hits that you can name them, from the Naughty Professor the to Dr. Doolittle, to voicing the character Donkey in the Shrek franchise, to is it Mulan, voicing the dragon in Mulan. His roster of films are still as perhaps the highest skyscraper that you can ever think of. But one of the things that becomes quite surprising is that when you hear that with all this success, a, a filmmaker or an actor of his caliber still has regrets or films that he passed or turned down. And well, he also does have regrets for films that he turned down. And we're talking about films like Ghostbusters. We're talking about films like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and the last one being Rush Hour. You can't imagine how possible that it could be that if a personality of his caliber, with all the success he has, still says that he regrets turning down these particular films. And for those who perhaps might be students of what's it called, film, may actually understand what he's talking about, considering the fact that these films went on to become such big phenomenal hits. So you can understand why that is the case. And so let's just take a quick look at a clip that he was being interviewed by the Associated Press, and as a result of that, he went on. He enumerated why these films actually is something that he regrets not taking them on, and has been something that he would have wished that he had approached it differently. So quickly, let's just take a brief look at why these are the case for him. So let's take a look at this short interview. I'm just hoping I will not be demonetized as a result of that. So let's do that right away.
Me staring at 23 unread messages, knowing each response will take 10 minutes to type. We've all been there, typing.
Ghostbusters, I was supposed to do Ghostbusters and didn't do that. In Rush Hour. Oh, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Those are my big three.
Pardon me, I don't know whether you're hearing me or not. Just a brief moment, just so I put together the sound. Let me just correct the sound briefly. I don't know why it's.
Ghostbusters, I did Beverly Hills Cop instead. So I was like, it was do this or that, so it worked out cool. And Who Framed Roger Rabbit just sounded ridiculous to me. And the movie I did instead of Rush Hour, Rush Hour, they came to me and they were like, hey, listen, this is.
Pardon me. Let me take it again. I don't know what became of my sound. Perhaps you might have heard it. I'm not so sure from my end. So yeah. So I'll take it again briefly. Okay, let's go.
Ghostbusters, I was supposed to do Ghostbusters and didn't do that. In Rush Hour. Oh, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Those are my big three. With Ghostbusters, I did Beverly Hills Cop instead. So I was like, it was do this or that, so it worked out cool. And Who Framed Roger Rabbit just sounded ridiculous to me. And the movie I did instead of Rush Hour, Rush Hour, they came to me and they were like, hey, listen, This is action comedy. You're gonna be in LA and you're running around with Jackie Chan and physical karate and all. And they said we got this other script where you go to Florida and you just have to wear one wardrobe, change, and you shave your hair and it's easy. Sit on the beach so I was like, let's go sit on the beach. And I did that, and the movie was horrible. And Rush Hour was this huge smash.
Yeah, so this is just a short clip that Eddie Murphy granted, which was used in Being Eddie. That is his Netflix documentary about his life story. I mean, chronicling both his life and career, and that is really interesting to see. And Eddie Murphy, as we have come to know, has starred in such certain iconic films, one of which you're seeing on the screen, that's the Beverly Hills Cop. And the three films he did mention actually have gone on to become one of some of the biggest hits, that you can ever think of. And they are more like cultural icons, or they've been sort of cemented in the pop culture lexicon that the studios always, keep making sequels of them. You talk about what's it called? Talk about Ghostbusters. They've gone on to make several of those films. And then you talk about Rush Hour, which has, they've made three parts already, but yeah, the fourth part has been in pre development for or pre-production for quite a long time. And last but not the least, which ones did I mention? I mentioned so Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Even though Who Framed Roger Rabbit has not been remade, it's still one of the films that defined a new technique of filmmaking, combining traditional animation or 2D animation with live action. So that became the very first one that did that. So obviously, those films are phenomenal films that have redefined and impacted the film industry, broadly. So I can understand why, looking back or casting his mind back on all that, he would have wished that things had played out differently. However, I mean, he did also state that for one, I mean, obviously, even though he was not able to do, I think, was it good Ghostbusters, he went on to do Beverly Hills Cop, which became a phenomenal hit. And even till I think recently, just a couple of years ago, another installation in the franchise was also actually done. So yes, he had successes on certain parts, but for others, it didn't really pan out well. And he would have wished that things had worked out well. But for every one of those films, they made quite some huge amounts of money during the year of their releases. And not just that, but also in terms of what's it called? In terms of critically, it was critically acclaimed. Let's just take a brief look as to how well these films performed. So We Framed Roger Rabbit, which was released in 1988, was made of a budget of a production budget of $50.6 million, but it went on to make $351.5 million worldwide. That is how successful it became at the time, which is a huge hit. And also with the Ghostbusters franchise, just even taking the one that was released in 1984, that is the original one, it went on to make $296 million worldwide. And after that first one, there's been four more that have been done uh, with varying critical reception as well as varying box office receipts. But in all, it's been very successful, even to the very last one that was released last year that made $202 million. So it's been good as a franchise. So all in all, these two franchises have been very successful. Now moving on to the very last one, that is Rush Hour, which actually saw Chris Tucker take his place, or the role that he could have played together with Jackie Chan. The first one was released in 1998 and made $244.7 million, and with on as against a modest budget. So that has been successful. And when you take a look at 2001. That is the part two that was released together with the 2003, which was released in with Rush Hour 3 released in 2007, all went on to make. The third one made $258.1 million, but the second one actually was the biggest of it all, which made $347.4 million. So, in hindsight, an actor who, even though he's as successful as he is now, you can understand why he would have wished that things had, if he had thought of it well, he would have done differently. And these are things that sometimes you can't do, much about. You win some, you lose some. That is the game of life. And I can understand because for Rush Hour in particular, I can understand because he had at the time he had made what's it called, Beverly Hills Cop, and maybe think that is too similar in terms of pattern or genre, because this is the buddy cop kind of a film and it's quite similar to this, even though with the Beverly Hills Cop he stood out as the lead, unlike Rush Hour where it's more like a dual lead compared to what he's done with the Beverly Hills Cop. So it is quite understandable that he may want to pass this on. However, I think just as you saw in the interview that you watched, he did say that Who Framed Roger Rabbit sounded quite, the title sounded quite not right with him. So in that case, well, that is his loss, But sometimes when you have successfully made a couple of movies with a particular, title or with a particular frame, you would understand, you would want to continue in that sure bet kind of titled movies or any other formulas that made it work well. But obviously, sometimes you can't predict how successful some certain genres will be, and you want to, I mean, avoid taking unnecessary risks that may potentially, affect your career. So I can understand him. But even with all his success, it is indeed good to sometimes reflect back and accept the fact that things may not have gone well the way you anticipated. But I think all in all, we can undoubtedly say for a fact that the career of Eddie Murphy has been one of a ride, a very exciting ride. And even though he's come back with a couple of films, they have been modestly successful, seeing that a lot of them, on much of his recent films, have been straight to streaming. So we might not have seen or known how successful would have been in the cinemas, but one way or the other, we had a lot of people watching it, and therefore it is understandable. But he has a couple more films to come, so obviously we'll be looking forward to see how successful those ones actually become as well. So all in all, let me know which of these three films do you think would have been the most different with Eddie Murphy actually accepting to act in them. Would it have made a good impact, or would it have been quite terrible had he taken them on? Whatever your thoughts may be, kindly let me know it in the comment section below.